bonus and all those little things into it. But still, $40 million. I predicted 39, so I'll give myself maybe a little bit of a pat on the back, so to speak, for that prediction. What's more exciting about the Mets, though, this week is that they went out and they landed themselves a GM. How exciting is that? That's right, they got Jared Porter. And a little bit about Porter, if you don't know, he's got 17 years MLB experience. He's got 4 World Series rings he's won. He's been with the Boston Red Sox, the Cubbies, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and now he joins the New York Mets as their general manager. And he's got postseason experience. He knows how to build a team for postseason. So he's definitely going to be the type of guy that you want running the ship, so to speak, for the New York Mets moving forward. Just going to make sure everything's going good here, and then we'll start answering any questions. Oh, there we go. So one of my questions there popping up. Awesome, thank you. JT Real Muto, what's going on with him now that James McCann has been signed, now that he's in the bag? Well, let's look at why the New York Mets passed on JT Real Muto. I think it a little bit had to do with money, but Cohen had that big wallet. But I think they just really wanted to get aggressive. They wanted to sort of check that box off, that catching box this offseason, get that done. And that's why they actually moved on with James McCann and that signing. JT Real Muto, he's one of the top 3 free agents this year. He's going to be the type of guy that's going to wait it out, wait till the biggest dollar comes on board or the conditions for his liking, but probably money in this scenario. And that's okay for me because that really works out well for the Blue Jays. As I said before, once the Mets really zeroed in on James McCann, it became really evident that there was going to be a shift there. And the Mets were going to be going after George Springer. And it's just going to be a matter of time before they get that deal done. Like JT Real Muto, George Springer's top free agent, so he's going to wait that out to get the top money. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the Mets that wait. And they have a little bit more patience when signing somebody for the outfield. So JT Real Muto's suitors or teams that actually could be in on him are really narrow. And the Blue Jays being the strongest. Now that being said, there are some other teams that could be in on him. That's for sure. But some have said the Nationals. Don't think that's really true. Some people have suggested the Angels. Don't know if that's really true either. We'll just have to really wait and see. There's really not a lot of teams that can afford him, except for the Blue Jays. He's going to want that deal that's going to be in excess of $24 million a year. And why do I say $24 million a year? Because that's going to exceed the annual value that the annual value of previous catcher, and he's escaping my name at the moment, Joe Mauer, who had $23 million a year. So happens when you do these things live. You got to have all the information going. But Joe Mauer had $23 million. JT Real Muto wants definitely more than that, even if it's 23.2, just so he can say that he has more than $23 million. So that's why I think the Jays are really the only team that can step up and get that done. So we'll have to wait and see and go from there. Bear with me one just question. I'm getting somebody here asking how they get on. Just going to answer that quickly for them. One moment. Sorry about that, guys. It's just what happens. People are bombarding. You're just trying to figure out how to get on and ask questions, so make sure they're quiet. But as I was saying, the Jays are really the only team who's going to be able to step up and afford that $120 million that they're going to want and need. So, when's that deal going to get done? I suspect probably late January, something like that. And that's really what's going to happen, and he's going to be the Jays catcher. And this is going to be interesting because the only reason why the Blue Jays might want to push this deal up and try to get Real Muto signed is because it has a ripple effect. And I've said this a couple times. It has a domino effect in the way that if the Jays do sign JT Real Muto, they're now going to have an influx of catchers. They're going to have Reese, they're going to have Jano, they're going to have Kirk coming up, and they're going to use some of that excess catching to make that trade with Pittsburgh. And that gets into maybe the next thing we could talk about, and that's Joe Musgrove. Now, a little bit about Musgrove. If you don't know, he is somebody who's been with Pittsburgh, just a player that's just coming into his prime now, really has just been stretched out, starting to get some consistent. And he's going to be a decent middle of the rotation piece for Pittsburgh, or if he does get traded next year. And I'm hoping that that comes for the Jays. And why? He's still arbitration eligible, $4.4 million. We got him for next year. If we do make that trade, he's an awesome candidate to do an extension, maybe 3/33 after that. So he's the type of catcher or pitcher that you can make that investment in. And additionally, on top of that, have him for a couple years. And we don't really have to trade away a lot. Maybe it's going to be Kirk. Maybe it would be Jano. Maybe something like Jano and Hatch combined. Not really sure how that dynamic would work in the Pittsburgh trade. But getting somebody like Joe Musgrove and his attitude all around, he's just a decent person, comes from a hardworking family, somebody you want in the clubhouse. I think that could be really awesome, and if the stars align how I hope this year for the Jays, then we get JT Real Muto, we get Joe Musgrove, and we really start building the pieces to being a more aggressive team in 2021, and a team that when those playoff contention comes up, especially if it's 8 teams again, we're maybe going to be able to get past round 1. Or if we come up to an aggressive team like Tampa again, we're really going to be able to give them more of a run for their money. On top of that, when you're talking about pitching for the Blue Jays, another interesting scenario that I've talked about, and I got some feedback, and a lot of people were receptive. Some people said, oh, I don't know. And that's really leaning on the Chicago Cubs. I think the Chicago Cubs are just in that position where they have to maybe do that rebuild. They've sniffed about that. They've talked about that. So I think that's really what's happening now. I don't know if Kyle Schwarber really declining a $7 to $9 million option played into that. I really think with Kyle it had more to do with his 188 average, honestly. So that's all you can really do there. But with the Cubs, if they start trading, say, somebody like Wilson Contreras, that's really interesting, because if they do that, then that means that they're definitely in rebuild mode. Pardon me for 1 second. Perfect. Just making sure everybody can see. So yeah, and getting into the Cubs, talking about that again in rebuild mode, if they are going into rebuild mode, like I said, if they do end up trading Wilson Contreras, then that's going to give more of an incentive for them to say to you, Darvish, hey, do you really want to be part of a team that's going to rebuild, or do you want to spend your next 3 years in a competitive nature, maybe going for a ring? And that's what's going to really ultimately decide if you will waive his no trade clause. And I think at the end of the day, if it was the right club and the right attitude, he would. Couple that with Chris Bryant and his $21 million. Now, they did pick that up. And I think a lot of that had to do with they just wanted to make sure they get some value out of the investment that they put into Chris Bryant over the years. But he's definitely getting traded. He's going to be a bit of a tougher sell because he's got that $21 million. As I said before, I don't think he really had that much of a dip in his production, but some people say he has, so we'll just have to wait and see how 2021 plays out for him. But I think if a team really combined Yu Darvish and Chris Bryant together in a trade and made the team pick up the entire $21 million on Bryant, that's really interesting. And that's something that the Jays could actually get done. They could put Bryant over at third base, fills that void. They can absorb the $21 million for him, the $22 million that Yu's going to make. And the type of trade to get that done with Chicago, well, I said that before. I think in this scenario, you're definitely looking at, I don't want to say Jordan Groshans, but definitely somebody like him. Maybe combined with Simeon Woods Richardson and Klofferstein. Getting those three together might get that deal done. I know it'd be a huge bite out of our prospects, but still, that's for 3 years of Yu Darvish. 3 years of Yu Darvish and Hin Chun-Ryu. Imagine that 1-2 punch, and Joe Musgrove and Nate Pearson. Jeez, that's a Blue Jays team that's meant to compete. That's a Blue Jays team that's definitely going to go deep. So, in talking about that, somebody said to me, what was the most exciting thing for me about the Blue Jays this year? And I'm going to do a vlog, but, you know, not to spoil it for anybody who's watching this tonight, but let's talk about what I thought was the most exciting moment. And it wasn't necessarily finally signing an ace in Ryu, pardon me. For me, it was the draft and getting Austin Martin. And thank you, Baltimore, I guess, for really screwing that up. They took, I think it was some guy named Tolkerson or something like that. Some hard-hitting first baseman that's probably going to smack like 40 home runs. But with Austin Martin, he was the best pure hitter in the draft. So that's really cool. Everybody thought he was going to go 1, maybe 2 at the latest. The Jays had the 5th in the draft this year, and we caught him. And top it all off, which makes us really cool about Austin Martin, is he's so far developed with his experience over at Vanderbilt that he's actually going to go into Double-A. So in the next 3 years, we have an awesome crop of players coming up. Think about that. We got Jordan Groshands, we got Simeon Woods Richardson, we got Alek Manoah, and now we got Austin Martin, and even Alejandro Kirk. Say we don't make any trades. And that's on top of Biggio, Vlad, Bo, Teoscar, and Lourdes. It's really cool to be a Blue Jays fan right now. In fact, I like our team a lot better than the New York Yankees. And let's talk about the Yankees in 2021 here in a second. Pardon me, my allergies are getting the best of me. So, the New York Yankees, 2021. This is what excites me about the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays have a real chance of winning the American League East. I'm not going to go that far to make that prediction yet because they got to go out and do a lot of signings, make a lot of things happen for that to happen. But let me tell you why. First off, let's put the Yankees aside for a second and talk about the other teams in the division. Got the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore Orioles are total rebuild mode. Way down there. They're going to be one of those teams that are fighting probably for a first-round pick. That's really it. Fighting maybe to get 70 wins. That's an awesome season for Baltimore. So they're out of the question. Boston, same thing. Chris Sale. People said, well, Chris Sale's coming back. No, he's not. He's going to be recovering from Tommy John. Probably for all of 2021. I don't think we'll see him. Maybe some brief stint in September if he does come back, but certainly not in a position to make an impact for Boston. Boston is just one of those failing ships again that really have to just say, okay, we're doing a rebuild. Let's get it done. And they're kind of doing that now, but they got to get really more aggressive with the rebuild. And getting aggressive in a rebuild is always tough when you got a team that's as rich as Boston because the fans get a little bit more like, hey, let's just go out and buy those players. So you always have that tug of war with the fans, so to speak, with Boston. But if they do a rebuild and they do it right, kind of like what the Yankees have done, then Boston could have an exciting team maybe 5 years from now. Now the Yankees. Yes, those Yankees. I know they got Judge. I know they got Stanton. You know, I know they got Cole. But what's really going to be make or break for the Yankees next year is going to be their starting rotation. And I just don't see a lot of depth at the moment behind Garrett Cole. Maybe they're going to go out and make some signings, but they're already cash-strapped and complaining about trying to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. So I don't even know if they're going to have money left over for Masahiro Tanaka. Maybe not even for J-Hap. Joking there, J-Hap is not going back to New York. That's like the biggest bet in Vegas. 1,000,000 to 1, J-Hap signs with New York Yankees. If you don't know, he hates them. There's a vlog on that, so check that out. It's coming up very soon from me. But anyways, who's going to pitch for the Yankees next year? So what they're going to have to do is be the Blue Jays, kind of like the Blue Jays of 2015 and 16. Nothing against the Jays, but the Jays pitching during the playoff run was great, but not exceptional. But their batting, they just hit their way to wins that season, and that's really what made them big with Edwin, Donaldson, and of course Batista. That's what made them such a dynamic team for those playoffs. It certainly don't remember that being their pitching. And that's kind of what the Yankees are going to be. So it'll be interesting to see. And God forbid something happens to Cole. The Yankees are screwed. So that's why I see the Jays having a lot of upside, especially if they stay healthy, especially if they keep adding the pieces that they've talked about adding. I think the Jays could actually retake New York for the American League East. Not going to say the Jays are going to go deep into the playoffs, but it's all going to determine on whether it's an 8 playoff season again. And let's talk about that right now, if you don't mind. What do you guys want? Do you guys want it to go back to the regular format with the 2 American League, with the wild card, 2 cards, or do you want it to go back to the new format, the 8 teams? Let me know in the comments there. Let's see what happens. I agree, definitely, that it was a bit of a change of pace, that's for sure. That's for sure. But it was something different, but I don't think that the Jays actually would have made the playoffs if they didn't have that 8 teams at 16, that typical sort of sports bracket for the playoffs. So I'll have to wait and see. Yeah, people are saying 8 as well. So, we got one person who said they would go back for sure. So we'll just have to wait and see. I like 8 because it gets my Jays into the playoffs. So if we get the Jays into the playoffs, hey, that's a win. The nice thing about the 8 too is it gets teams who maybe are a little bit more financially strapped. Usually I report to Oakland, but Oakland has this magical way of just making it work. I don't know, the Moneyball way. I know it's not really Moneyball anymore. There's something Oakland can do, but there's a lot of cash-strapped teams, a lot of teams that just have smaller markets that really could benefit from that 8-team or 16-team bracket for the playoffs. So that's a real reason why I like it. Another question that was asked at the beginning of the vlog was, how many games do you think are going to be played next season? Well, it's certainly going to be a lot more than 60. MLB made that announcement this week. The season's going to be pushed back to 2021, and I'm okay with that. I think by pushing back the season to 2021, it allows for the MLB to really make sure they're ready if there's any pandemic, all that social distancing, not to get political, but if there's vaccines and it allows people to safely go and attend baseball games, that's a huge bonus. And I think by pushing it back, it allows for baseball to maybe have some normalcy, have some fans back in the stadium, and get back to a little bit of normal. Additionally to that bonus is the Toronto Blue Jays will certainly benefit by this. I think May might just be enough time, especially if everybody's vaccinated, and I'm sure all the players will have to be vaccinated, for the Jays to have home games in Toronto. And if it doesn't happen in May, maybe there's like a 2-month period where they're playing in Buffalo, but maybe July 1st, wouldn't that be cool to have a game in Toronto on Canada Day? Love the Canada Day games. But maybe July 1st we get back to having home games in Toronto. And for the rest of the season, we just slowly increase with fans there. Also, I think by pushing it back to May, it's going to make sure that they're really ready and there's not as many interruptions, not as many COVID outbreaks. And it really allows the teams to really have that reset and get ready for 2021. Now, I know I've been rambling, but that's the name of my vlog. So how many games? I say 120 next year is a pretty decent number. Double what we did in 2020. And 120 games will definitely be exciting. 120 games really can allow the MLB season to sort of progress and develop. And what I mean by that, when we played the 60 games, it felt really compressed at times. So when you have 120, it will really separate the top teams from the lower teams there, because you might be a team that's doing okay but really not built for success, and you just go on a little bit of a decent run, and with a 60-game season, all of a sudden you're kind of high up in the bracket. Well, you can't fake that stuff for 120 games. Certainly not 162 games. That's been proven time and time again with baseball. So 120 games, I like that idea. All right, we'll do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. And that question was actually sent to me yesterday. Somebody who's going to be watching tomorrow who just couldn't attend live. Somebody else asked if they'll let fans back. I think definitely. You're already seeing fans back in the NFL and some different sporting events, and especially with vaccination. I know I keep saying vaccination, I don't want to be political, but really that's going to be the ultimate road. So I definitely see fans coming back for maybe the second half, and definitely maybe seeing a really decently full stadium for playoffs next year. And I really miss that playoff energy, especially if they had a playoff game in Toronto. Just imagine that. It takes me back to that game 5 where Jose Bautista hit that home run, and it was just insanity in Toronto. So, oh, somebody asked if I thought about doing a podcast. Yeah, I think so. My goal right now is to get up to 250 subscribers, get a regular fan base, get a feel of the vlog, and then maybe do a podcast. It's definitely going to be the next step, and something that I really would like to do because you have a little bit more thought into that. Not that I don't put thought into my vlogs, but I try to keep them short, under 4 minutes. And a podcast would really allow me to get into that explanation, that really detailed thought, the analytics, all that juicy stuff that I like about baseball. So that's something that I'm hoping to grow for. Additionally, some other things that I'm hoping for my channel before I finish up tonight is hoping in the new year to do a cameo. So have somebody come in and just do a quick call in, talk about the channel. And we're working on an interview with 2 people. One I'm not going to say yet, but he was with the Blue Jays during the World Series team, and we're going to maybe be able to meet him at an autograph signing, but it all depends on COVID, unfortunately, so fingers crossed. Another cool thing is I believe they're going to let me into the Rogers Center in April just to see what's going on with the renovations and the new turf, so I might be able to do a tour of that, and I'm hoping I can maybe do that live, so if anybody has questions or they want to see something, we'll see. So that's some exciting things coming up for my vlog and maybe a podcast. And my last question that I wanted to answer tonight, that original question that was asked, is what am I most excited about with the Blue Jays in 2021? And I'm a pitcher guy, so for me, it's going to be having that consistency again on the mound. I was really excited to see Nate Pearson come up in 2020, make that major league debut. I know he had a ton of hype, and then 2020 just kind of sucked for him. There's no other way to say it. He had an ERA, I think that was like 5 or 6. I'd have to go back and Google it. Then he got injured, then he was gone, and that was just kind of 2020 for Nate Pearson. So 2021 is really going to allow him to establish himself, really show that he's that starter. I know he might be a little bit shaky. And if anybody remembers, actually Roy Halladay got sent back to the minors in his first year. Had to redevelop everything, came back and became an ace. One of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's what I'm most excited about in 2021. Nate Pearson and what he's going to be able to do to the Blue Jays and really bring that depth to the rotation and make the Jays a playoff caliber team. And as I said, if it does go to 8 teams, I definitely see the Jays making the playoffs. And my goal would be maybe they make it to round 2. I'm not like thinking World Series for next year. I'm a little bit more cautious that way. But I definitely see some awesome growth with the Jays. And who knows who they go out and sign. That could just be one of those things that takes us way over the top. No, it's not going to be DJ LeMahieu. I saw that comment come up. It's probably going to be JT Realmuto. I definitely see Ha-Sung Kim coming our way as well. So just those 2 players that trade for Joe Musgrove and maybe one more starter. Adding those 4 on top of the current group that we have, it's just going to add for more wins and go deeper into the postseason. Just make the Jays a really exciting team. And as I said that earlier tonight, maybe even take the Yankees over for the American League East. All right, I'm going to wrap it up tonight. Been going on for almost a half hour. Thank you for everybody who's listening, anybody who's going to come back and watch this again later. And if you haven't entered that draw, it's December 23rd. That's my next live stream. It's going to be at 7:30 p.m. And we're going to do the live draw at that time. And what I'm talking about with that live draw is we have a vlog going on right now. So if you haven't seen it and it's before December 23rd, go back, watch that vlog. There's a trivia question in it. Put the comment in the comments below on that vlog, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win an awesome Blue Jays toque. and we're going to draw for that toque on Wednesday, December 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Till then, everybody stay safe. We'll talk soon. Happy holidays. Relax. I know it's the holidays. It can get a little crazy. So sending everybody good vibes, and we'll talk soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.